Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Damien Oliver, and today we're going to continue our little adventure here in Infinity Evolved in the Skyblock mode. So, as you can see here, this is kind of my little ore gathering setup here that I made last episode. Basic idea is this takes cobblestone, crushes into gravel, gravel gets sifted for ores, ores get turned into their various blocks, and we make a profit. Well, this seemed very simple at first. In fact, I kind of had to modify this a little bit since the last time you guys seen it because there were a couple of issues, and there still are. The first and foremost being that, well, these little guys here. If we take a look here, our lead ores and everything they're not clogging up the system per se. They do make it through, and the second one usually catches the overflow if necessary. Sometimes I need to come by and manually add stuff back over the first one, but for the most part it holds out okay. And even the diamonds, the flint, the apatite, and the emeralds and all that usually are pretty okay. Anything that does not get crushed gets pushed over to this chest here. This is the first, well, it's one of the alterations I made. Basically, these transfer pipes will take out of this inventory and will go to the first inventory that will accept the item. So if the compressor will take the item, it goes here. If it doesn't, it will go to this compressor. If for some reason it does not go to either of those compressors, then it will come down the longer pipe down to this chest. These are all items that can't be compressed, which is kind of annoying because I know in other Skyblock maps, bone meal, gunpowder, and I think blaze powder all could be compressed. Diamond dust, sulfur, and Skyblock or skystone dust couldn't be, but you get the idea. So I've also had to make that modification. The other thing we've noticed is, like I said, this kind of fills up, really. And while it does do its job rather well, don't get me wrong there, I am really happy with this part of it. The problem is once I start taking this and putting it into the hammer here, which will then take the dust and put it back into the compressors, the problem is that it comes out with a different sort of broken ore, or gravel, I believe. Basically, this stuff here. Now, if you remember last time, I think I counted 11 different types of ore that you can get from sifting just gravel. Well, that kind of multiplies by 3 when you do this process. So what I found I have to do is I basically have to take everything out. The apatite and the emeralds and all that could probably stay if they really wanted, but there's no reason. Oops, there's a match right there. Then I have to move everything to over here, and is that really all of it? Yeah, that's right. In fact, I'm probably going to put these back in there just for the heck of it. But now I can take the gravel and everything out of here. And it'll start smashing that and send it back through. So the only little gripe there is we gotta kind of smash a whole stack of gravel and stuff, which takes a little bit of time. Refine it down over to the gravel and the sand, then redo the process over again, over and over until we get the dust. Don't get me wrong, it's not terrible. I mean, there's much worse ways of doing it. I can come down here and check this every half hour versus while I'm doing things upstairs, versus having to be there hammering at it all the time. Now, I should point out two things. One, this process is not fast. Two, I'm basically being powered by those water mills, which I think the water mills over there are like 30 a piece, so 6 times 30, that's 180. And both hammers and the sieve take 40 each, so that's about 120 right there. Plus, you know, the 10 per operation, or the 5 per operation from these. So overall, we are getting a net power gain. However, traveling this distance does cost us a little bit of power. So when I noticed that when everything was working and charging at the same time, I was losing more power than what those were giving me. Right now, we're holding steady though, so that's just a minor complaint. I did also kind of play around with the advanced item filter, and I think the item filters we could probably use to sort out the finished products if we wanted to. It would take a couple of filters to do so, but unfortunately the advanced item filter and all its different programs does not seem to be compatible with ex nihilo dust and stuff. Even though it does say dust or blocks and ingots and stuff like that, none of that actually seems to work with ex nihilo. The only thing I did find that did work was the smeltable option, which basically means not can it go into smeltery, but can it be burnt like this, which just means can't go into an oven, or sorry, into a furnace. That did seem to work. That will keep out the apatite, the block of emeralds, diamonds, and everything else. But then all your sand, your gravel, and your dust, since they're all smeltable, tend to go into that pile. So does your coal too. Does it work? Yes, yes it does. Is it great? Not really. Ideally, I'd like to try to figure out a way of making a program that isn't ex nihilo compatible. But right now, I don't know where to find said programs to add to them, if that's even possible. So, yeah, there's that. So yeah, basically that's everything here. Upstairs has not really changed much. You will note that I did get another, well actually I didn't get another one, I had another transfer node and I'm using it right now. And basically what that will do is it'll take things that are in my smeltery, or rather are in my smeltery casting table, and it will pull them into this chest. Add in the redstone clock, which is the same redstone clock we got over there with our cobble generator. And when there's something in here, every tick it sends a redstone pulse to this faucet, which pours it into the cast, and then it just gets moved straight into here. So, simple process, all things considered. I haven't moved this stuff yet. Getting there. I did, however, make a couple of transfer nodes for liquids. Liquid transfer nodes are pretty easy. Helps if I can spell. The only difference is this one requires a chest, whereas this one requires a little bit of iron and a bucket. So you will need to have, you know, the well, you will need to have a bucket first, basically. But once that's done, you can place them onto anything that's giving out liquid, and it'll automatically transfer them. I'm doing this mainly in three different places. One is the coke oven to transfer creosote into this drum. Do I really need that much creosote? Not really, but I don't really know another way to get rid of it short of, you know, trying to avoid it or something. It will be useful for treated wood planks and other things later, so keeping it for now. The other one is for this crucible. I already have a hopper dropping stone in here constantly, and I was just using buckets to transfer over. But with the transfer node, it's keeping everything filled up, basically. And it just basically pulls over a couple of millibuckets at a time as the smelter uses them. The other place is over here. This is the Ironcraft water tanks, which I showed you guys before. They hold like 8 times as much as the normal barrels do, but you can't use dust to clay or anything like that. So what I'm doing is, well, I could probably fairly easily make a water source, or an infinite water source. Really all you need is a 2x2, a transfer node, and a world interaction upgrade, which, you know, iron, lapis, and diamond, all of those are pretty easy for me to get now. I could use that just over a 2x2 source of water and have infinite water. But what I'm doing is whenever it rains, it basically goes into our tank, which then goes into this drum, and you can see I got quite a bit here in this drum. It's almost maxed out, actually. And then I can transfer that water other ways, or I can put it directly into here. That way I don't have to worry about buckets or bottles of water or whatever. I just put in some dust and clay settles. Once I take the clay out, almost immediately they fill back up. So, yeah, that's about everything up here. Now, I have been doing a little bit of grinding. Keep in mind, a very minor bit of grinding for resin for the next part of our get together here. We're going to need, well, really, we're going to get started into industrial craft. Just kind of the bare basics, because industrial craft is not really my mod. I'm going to be honest. It is a good one. Once upon a time, it was one of my favorites. But thermal expansion and Ender IO have kind of taken over from there. That's just me. Have been grinding mobs a little bit. But we will be needing some rubber later on. For a couple reasons. Not only do we need it to make the rubber that's for industrial craft, which can be used for quite a few different things, not just industrial craft anymore. But it can also be smelted into the plastic that's used for a mine factory. Yeah, like I said, quite a few different uses for it now. How many of these we will actually use? Don't know. I guess we'll have to figure that out later. But it is, you know, good to know. Wires. Like I said, it does have the mine factory raw plastic, which is also used for a lot of things. Mine factory is kind of the automated mod to go to nowadays, so we will probably be needing a lot of it for that. I mean, you got all the upgrades there, you got the plastic sheets. The plastic sheets are going to be the pain, honestly, because the plastic sheets are used in a lot of things, especially in Mine Factory. Basically all of our automated items have plastic in them somewhere. But the biggest problem is whoops. Biggest problem is plastic sheets require raw plastic, which we can get. Compressed sawdust, which requires a sawmill, which again we can get. And rocket fuel, and that's going to be the hard one. Because rocket fuel you can only really get from the vat, and that requires hooch, gunpowder, and redstone. And that's really the only recipe for it. And hooch itself isn't necessarily hard to get, but it is another process. Can I spell this? No? Okay. Hooch is basically sugar, water, and basically anything, any food you can grow. At least in most of the basic ones anyways. I don't know if Pam's Harvest Craft stuff will work or not. But ideally potatoes and poisonous potatoes work best. Wheat's not bad, but you know. Now the other problem is with all of this requires a vat, which the vats are a whole another beast on itself. Because these are not iron or steel, these are electrical steel, which is something entirely different. We would need aluminum, machine frames, basic capacitors. All of this is really a pain in the rear to get. So like I said, they're kind of a beast unto themselves. The fluid tanks aren't bad. It's really just this the machine chassis here. The machine chassis is going to be kind of a pain in all the Ender IO systems, I imagine. But that's neither here nor there. What are we going to get started on today? Today we are going to get started on trying to help some of these problems here. So as you can see, I've been collecting rubber. One of the ways we can kind of help with our rubber production is by making the extractor. The extractor basically takes rubber and it takes one resin or rubber sapling. Okay, correction. It takes rubber wood or a rubber sapling and gives you one rubber, or it can take a resin and gives you 3, and that will probably be our primary method there. Now for the extractor itself, it's not hard to make. You just have to make a couple of these rubber taps, which again are not hard. A machine frame and an electrical circuit. So we'll get started on that here. Also, I've been farming a bit of wood. I think I forgot to make my electrical circuit first. The electrical circuit's not hard for those who don't remember. It's just the iron plate and the wires. And the wires are another reason why we want a bit of rubber. And then we need a basic machine frame. There we go. Okay, yeah. NEI sometimes has problems with anything that has NBT data. And all the tree taps do because it keeps track of how much damage they have. See this little progress bar here? Anything with that it will have issues with. Okay, so we got an extractor. Now, we also have our metal former over there. We don't have a real good way of storing ME power yet. Now, on the one hand, we really don't need a way of storing ME power, but it is kind of nice to have because ME power is EU, whereas everything else we've been using is RF, and I think it's 4 RF to 1 ME. So the EU storage is called the BAT box, and that says the maximum store is 40K. Well, times that by 4, and that's 1600 versus our energy cell. Again, it helps if I can spell. that's about 60,000 more RF than immersive engineering. And okay, so the lead-acid energy cell does in fact hold about twice as much. So I suppose you really don't need it. We will, just because, you know, I'm showing you guys this anyway. But in order to make that, first we need to make a couple of batteries, which, as you can see, we've already made. They just require some tin item casings, some tin cable, and some lactine. Now the item casings are basically smashing things with a tin plate, or you can use your metal former. The metal former is obviously the best way of doing it. The electron is a little bit harder, well, not harder, but different to get because it comes from sand. Now let's actually go over to sand here. If you take a look at the sand, there are some things that we don't get normally, because I normally only can do gravel and dust. For example, the surface quartz and charged surface quartz only come from sand, but we really don't need those until we get to AE. The ancient spores, the quicksilver drops, and the exotic seeds are things that are kind of nice to have, but they also take up a bit of inventory space that, I don't really care for right now. But, you know, everything said and done, you can smash sand if you want. I'm not going to argue against it. It's just not my cup of tea. So you do need to crush a bit of sand to get the electron for that, which is where I was trying to go that whole time. Sorry it took me so long to say that. And then let's see your bat box. The bat box is basically just wood, batteries, and another tin cable. So we grab our batteries, we grab our other tin cable, and I forgot to grab the wood. There we go. Okay. And then we basically just take it down there with another cable to connect it. Remember that the immersive engineering cables can, the LV wires can convert just about any power source you want, honestly. Well, here's good for now, I suppose. Now, the bat box can take power from any side except for the one that has this dot. The dot is the one that outputs power. So, if I do this, it connects. And it's basically going to start charging power through this, anything connected to this wire. Now, we don't have anything connected to it yet. And we don't have any power going to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a LV wire connector, connect it to here. While I'm down here, I'm going to drop off the rest of that ore that I have in my inventory. Actually, I'm going to use it to give me an elevated boost because I can't reach that. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, we're now getting power. Should be getting power there too. Yep. Okay. Now keep in mind that the things like the auto hammer and sieve can store a lot of power internally. IC2 machines really can't. That's one of the reasons why you want the bat box. Or at least, well, I prefer to have a bat box anyways. The other thing to note is you can have the wires here. This one is insulated, which means I added a bit of rubber. But you don't have to. Oh, that's a cable. Sorry. So many different terms. You have to make sure you have the right one. You don't have to have the insulated cable. Both of them transfer at 120 EU per tick. The difference is I think the insulated ones have a lower power loss over distance. Like I want to say that insulated cables can go, or insulated copper cables can go 4 spaces, and then they lose an EU per tick about here. Normal copper cables, I think, lose it about here or something like that. The other problem is non-insulated power cables have a chance of zapping anybody who touches them. So if this has power going through it and I'm standing on here, I'll start taking damage like I'm getting shocked. Which, quite frankly, I am. So there is that. I have seen that being used in some mob grinders before, but you know, it's not my preferred method. I mean, there is no actual power loss if somebody's getting shocked by it, so there's something at least. But by the way, my water mills have started spawning squids, and it's actually not something bad per se, as much as unexpected and slightly annoying, because I'll come down here and find entire floors full of ink sacs. But yeah, yeah, it looks like we're getting a small bit of a jam here. Well, not so much of a jam, but I probably should have put these in here instead, because they're not really going to get reduced. So, okay. The other thing, let's see, what was another thing I wanted to do? What was that? Well, I want to move that metal former down here. Let me go grab that real quick, and I'll see if I can remember what the other thing was. Ooh, hopefully this does not... Okay, so that's a problem. I can't remember if that's in this pack or not. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I did just kind of poke around the configure a little bit here. Something I forgot about IC2 machines is they don't really react to other wrenches like most other mods seem to. In fact, IC2 doesn't really react to many other mods easily. And usually other mods react to IC2. But one of the things that kind of happens is, one, there was a thing with exploding wires. I don't believe that's currently a thing. Basically, you put too much power through your wire, the wires will explode or burn up. Too much power into a machine would cause it to explode. I don't believe that's a thing nowadays, because this is quote-unquote the experimental build. But the other thing is if you can't use another wrench from another mod, you can use a pickaxe, but I think there's a really, really good chance that you do that, the only thing you're going to get back from it is the machine casing, which is kind of a loss of material. The other option you can use is the IC2 wrench, which there's 2 different ones, the wrench and the electric wrench. The difference is the wrench, if I use that on this machine here, there's a, I want to say it's an 80 or 90% chance I will get the machine back. Otherwise, I get the casing back. If this one works the same way, unless I change that mode to lossless, in which case I'm guaranteed to get the machine casing back, but at like 4 times the energy cost. So, looks like we got lucky that time. For this reason, you generally want to have a pretty good idea of where you want to put your IC2 machines before you set them down up here like I did. And honestly, this is probably not going to be the last place I put the metal former. It just kind of does the job for now. But I don't foresee a whole... Okay, correction, I do foresee a lot of uses of it. I don't foresee me having to run back and forth between IC2 machines too often, so if I have to replace one or two, it's not a big deal. Now, what were we making? Oh, in my now the thing with the extractors, like I said, you just put them in there, and you can slowly see it start to build up there. It gets 3 times the result. The extractor does have other items too, which is kind of nice in some cases, but really a whole lot of them aren't really necessary. So, yeah. I suppose the bricks to the bricks might be kind of nice. But, you know, whatever. There was another machine... Right, a compressor. This is not the auto compressor I got over there. This compressor here is pretty simple, but it basically compresses blocks, well, no, not blocks, but, you know, plates into higher density plates, which are needed for other machines. Again, not something I'm particularly seeing myself needing a whole lot of, but you know, never know. Plates, I should point out that you don't need copper cables to be insulated for traveling through power, or power traveling through it. Sorry, but you do need insulated cables for just about every crafting recipe. So. Bit of redstone. Okay, and we have ourselves a compressor. And I should probably have grabbed in one more wire. 1 second, folks. Wow, that's kind of surprising, actually. Okay, no big deal. Again, the metal former to the rescue here. If I had to make wire using the snips and hammer, I think I would get 2 wires for 2 copper ingots and some durability loss on my hammer. Here I can just use the metal former, and I think I get 1 ingot for 3 wires. Yep. So, metal former to the rescue. Let's just make all of these, and then I will extend outwards here. I believe 4 is the maximum that an insulated copper can go before energy loss happens. So now with the compressor, we can take a look at the inventory. Crushed uranium, glowstone. We don't really need the glowstone much. I think what I was going to use this for was for the dense iron. Oh, guess not. That's what I was going to use it for. The recline plates comes from making plates with steel, or steel plates, either way. We're going to need a lot of these because these are what we use to make machine frames. We are also going to need the basic circuit boards, which are the which we use or create using the carpenter, which is one of the machines we created at the get-go and really haven't had a chance to use since. It was the one that was not draining constantly, so I haven't really bothered it. Yeah, that was a bad recipe. We never actually used this yet. So, we are getting a bit on time, and we have gone over about 3 different machines. So, you can see here that my barrel has finally filled up, and I'm starting to gain back in my tank. So, that's something. But, I think, folks, we're probably going to call it here for today. And, what I'm going to probably do in between episodes is grind up a little bit. We are going to need to make those machine frames. We are going to need quite a bit of steel, really, because they required 9 steel each. Yeah, 9 steel each, so that's going to take some time. We also need the basic circuit boards, which isn't hard. And we need the crust obsidian, which we need a rock crusher for. I don't think the rock crusher was difficult, but it might be something we do for another day. A block of steel for 4 blocks, and that's a 3x2x2, so that's 12 items we need. So we need, 3 blocks of steel, 12 pistons, and 12 diamonds for this. Memory serves, this is also one of those machines that constantly taking power. I'll have to check it on that. But, like I said, I think we're going to call it here for today. And, well, at least we get our head out of the way a little bit. We might have to consider making ourselves an actual house or something at some point. But again, my name is Damien Oliver, and I hope that you found this to be informative, if mostly being a catch-up episode, honestly. But we did get a couple machines done, we figured out a couple of things we need to do in the future, and we kind of got our basis started for a new sort of infrastructure. So, again, my name is Damien Oliver. If you have any comments or suggestions, tips, hints, and improvements are always welcome in the comments. You can also message me on YouTube or on Twitch. For the purposes of this game, or this playthrough, I think I'm going to be mostly on YouTube, but you can find me on Twitch on occasion. So, in the meantime, have fun.